Hi, welcome to Tea Time. My name is Adrienne Savage, and today we'll be discussing the National Defense Authorization Act with Ron Dubois. He is a New Jersey Tea Party Coalition member and a patriot. Hi, how are you today?
I'm fine, Adrienne. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Good.
Before we start, let's get a little bit of background on the NDAA, or the National Defense Authorization Act, and how it came about.
Okay. Well, the National Defense Authorization Act is regularly approved, basically, to budget the military each year. But there were some things put into it in 2011 that were a bit unusual.
Okay.
Now there's a lot of argument back and forth, but basically I believe that it authorizes the president to detain American citizens without trial, without any definitive time limit, on any grounds, and this, I think most people realize, is unconstitutional.
Okay.
Because it goes against the Fourth and Fifth Amendments. It goes against posse comitatus. And because it authorizes the United States military to detain American citizens on American soil,
Okay.
it's unconstitutional in that regard also.
Okay, Ron, but before we get into that, we may have some viewers that don't understand the real background and like when it was signed and why we actually have this particular bill and why it's renewed every year.
Mm-hmm. Well, it passed the House May 26th, 2011.
Okay.
And it passed the Senate on December 1st, 2011. And I'm not sure how long it took after that for the president to sign it, but it wasn't very long after that where he signed it into law.
Okay.
Now, almost immediately, there was a lot of controversy because it's 1,800 and some odd pages.
Wow, that's a lot of pages.
It's a very long act, and as usual, nobody really read everything in it, and it was rushed through the Senate, so there wasn't time. Now that it's become law, people started looking at it more closely, and they discovered that there are in sections 1021 and 1022, there are wordings that are very questionable because they seem to allow the president to do things that are not within the constitutional limits.
So you said that the two sections are 1021 and 1022. So what specifically in these two different sections of this bill that are onerous or that people are taking issue with, and how do those two different sections differ?
Well, basically, Section 1021 is an authorization. In other words, you don't have to do what it says.
Okay.
And 1022 is a mandatory provision where it's mandatory that it's followed. And both of them basically have wording that says a citizen who helps Al-Qaeda or any other terrorist organization, or abets them or gives them comfort, can be guilty under this act and arrested without trial, put into detention for as long as the government wants to hold them. No writ of habeas corpus, nothing.
Well, individuals who are defending these two clauses say it's not much different than what President Bush did in 9/11. So how is it different?
Well, it is very different, actually, because after 9/11, President Bush was given the authority to fight back against the terrorist organizations, but the wording made it very clear that it had to be a terrorist organization or a terrorist or somebody directly involved with them, directly assisting them, directly funding them, directly harboring them, and American citizens themselves weren't even mentioned in the wording. Although, yes, if an American citizen did go to Iraq and fight against the U.S. forces, and they were captured on the battlefield, actually they were even sent to Guantanamo at first, some of them. There was a lot of question as to whether or not they even had a right anymore as a citizen for trial by jury.
So I guess the main things that people really have problems with these two sections is that it's very ambiguous. They're not really identifying what a quote-unquote enemy is.
Yes.
And they're leaving the determination up to whom?
Actually, the president.
So the executive branch, the power has been extended.
Not the judicial branch or anything, but the executive branch would have the power, unlike the laws that were enacted after 9/11, the two sections, 1021 and 1022 under the NDAA, actually don't really say who is a combatant, who is a traitor, who should be arrested in what case. It just says anybody associated with. Well, if they want to look at it in that regard, say you saw a charitable organization tomorrow that looked like they needed help, and you made a donation to them.
Right.
And next year, the government finds that that organization, which had charitable status, has been siphoning funds to Al-Qaeda.
Okay.
They can now arrest you without charges, without trial, and put you indefinitely into detention in one of the FEMA camps or elsewhere for assisting terrorists because you innocently gave to what you thought was a charity a year ago, and now the government finds out they were associated with terrorism, and they'll arrest you, and it's up to you to prove that you're innocent.
And this bill goes even further, where it extends the power to the U.S. military as well.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. According to the Posse Comitatus, which goes back to the 1800s, you're not allowed to use the American military against American citizens on American soil.
No.
Yet, the National Defense Authorization Act, certain parts of it, allow the president to use American troops against American citizens on our own soil. And his argument for that is, well, we're actually in like a war against terrorism, so the country is at war and the entire country is the battlefield. So I can arrest anybody using American military troops because of that. I know it's
So,
far-fetched.
It's pretty, yeah, it is, but have they given any explanation as to, I guess that was the explanation as to why they need it, is that
Yeah.
we're at
Yeah.
war.
Yeah.
And because we're at war, the lengths we'll go to is even imprisoning
Then-
our own individuals.
Well, if we were
With-
just at war overseas,
Right,
that couldn't be done. But because the president and his staff have declared that there's a war, even though there's no formal war declaration from Congress,
Right.
they say that there's a war on terror, which is a term that has been used even by the Bush administration.
yes.
And because there's a war on terror and we've been attacked here, then the entire country is a battlefield and therefore open to the intervention of the United States Armed Forces to obey the instructions of the president and his administration, to go so far even to arrest American citizens and hold them without charges.
Now, I mean, I was reading up a little bit about this, and I even saw that the ACLU is on board with
Yes. Surprising.
getting rid of it. This is how abhorrent that this bill is.
Yes.
So it still passed with, I believe, about 2/3 of the
Yes.
Senate and the House. So how did that happen?
Well, basically, the version that was passed by the House specifically had wording in it exempting American citizens.
Okay.
Then it went with that same wording to the Senate. And I believe it was Senator Dick Durbin actually wrote a whole expose of this, I would call it. But the senator wrote about 2 or 3 months ago that when it was passed, he said that while the Senate was considering passing the NDAA,
Right.
they got a call from the White House specifically asking that some wording would be changed. And the wording that the White House wanted changed was to remove the specific wording that exempted American citizens. So I have not read the actual final version of the bill to see if that was changed there, but I would trust the senator's version that the wording was changed prior to the Senate passing it.
So after many of these senators discovered afterwards that this wording had been inserted, has there been any, anyone speaking out against it?
Repercussions?
Or repercussions either?
Well, I believe some were upset, but it's signed into law. So I think most of the politicians are waiting to see if there's a test case that the president actually tries to use this. Because when the president signed this into law, he issued a signing statement, which he seems to be prone to do since he took over. And his signing statement basically said, yeah, I have the authority now to do all this and arrest American citizens without any charges, hold them indefinitely, but I won't do it.
Wow.
So he's in effect saying, well, you don't have to worry that that's the law now because I wouldn't do that to you.
Okay. So we're gonna take a break right here, and we'll be back. And for those of you in the audience, please remember to visit our site at NewJersey-Tea-Party-Coalition.org, and we'll be right back. Thank you.
With all the excitement happening with the Tea Party, it may be a little hard to separate fact from fiction. Find out the truth for yourself. Visit the New Jersey Tea Party Coalition's website at www.njteapartycoalition.org. You may find a common voice to your concerns on how our government is functioning and discover a means to help restore our nation based on the proven principles of our Constitution.
I'm Adrienne Savage, and we just got finished talking about the NDAA Act, and we also have our guest here, Ron DuBois, and we're going to talk about Sharia law right now. So give us some background on Sharia.
Well, Sharia law is part of the overall religion of Islam, although it's really more than religion. It encompasses military, financial, your personal, social life. Everything is encompassed by Islam. But what holds it together like the glue, basically, is Sharia law.
Okay.
Sharia law governs every aspect of their lives, of the lives of Muslims, regardless of which branch of Islam you belong to. It comes basically from the Quran itself and from the hadiths and the surahs. And from these, the Islamic scholars and imams of old created their own law, or that is, their interpretations, since the law itself came from God through Muhammad. And this guides their lives. The problem with it is that wherever they go, they want to impose that on their hosts.
So let's say, we hear Sharia law, right? And we say, well, it's all about a religion. We want to be open to other people's beliefs. What's the harm? What's the harm in embracing, parts of Sharia in our society?
Well, there's two parts. First of all, is the part that is unduly harsh, to put it mildly. Under Sharia law, women have no real rights. They can be beaten by their husbands. A thief can have his hand and a leg cut off. An apostate, somebody who leaves or wants to leave Islam and become a Catholic or a Protestant or a Jew, or have no religion at all, besides they're an atheist. They are put to death if they're caught.
How is that impacting Americans? I mean, I'm an American. I'm here in the United States. I don't know much about Sharia law. Sharia law is practiced by,
Muslims.
Muslims, in another country. How does that impact me?
Okay, it impacts you because you're American, so am I, and we are governed by our constitutional law. Okay. A lot of Americans, believe it or not, don't understand that the U.S. Constitution is the law of the land.
Right.
Every law that we have is supposed to be constitutional, based on the Constitution. Right. And Sharia law is very different. And in every other group of people that's emigrated to this country in our history has adapted to our constitutional laws, at least once the Constitution was written and put into practice. Now, Sharia law is something that is antithetical to our Constitution, yet when Muslims come in here, they don't want to use our constitutional law, they want to use Sharia law, which even if it was okay for them to use it only amongst themselves, that's not good enough. They want to impose it on everyone else.
So what are some examples that are already occurring in our society?
Well, you have, at the taxpayer's expense, foot washing stations have been put in airports. more courses have been put into our public schools to learn about Islam and being Muslim, and that's a problem because it's already been shown very clearly that it's more propaganda than fact. If you actually read what's in our children's textbooks in the public schools, these things are guided by Muslims and brought into the curriculum, and it's propaganda and lies.
Well, I know that some judges have been trying to experiment with applying Sharia.
Mm-hmm. Well, Sharia law has actually been applied in 23 states by a number of judges, even here in New Jersey. Here in New Jersey, you may recall the woman who went to the court to get a restraining order against her husband because he was abusive and beating her. And the husband claimed that it was according to Sharia law, and he's a Muslim, therefore the court should accommodate him and find in his favor. Well, believe it or not, this judge found in his favor and said, oh, well, if you're a Muslim, okay, I'll go according to Sharia law.
Wow.
Which is outrageous that this poor woman could not get an order of protection from her abusive husband because he claimed it's his right as a Muslim. Well, of course, it was appealed and immediately overturned on appeal. But that's not important that it was overturned. The problem is that it was decided according to Sharia law in the first place, as have many other cases been found. And the trouble now is more and more higher court positions have been filled by people, even like Governor Christie, appointed Muslim, a Muslim to the Superior Court in New Jersey, which wouldn't be a problem except now if somebody who, like this woman, had appealed and it went to this Muslim judge in a higher court, that Muslim judge is more than likely to reject the appeal and still rule for the husband.
Wow. I know they also have Sharia banking or Sharia loans.
Well,
what
Sharia
is that?
finance,
Yeah.
it's really a whole separate area. It's not Sharia law itself,
Okay.
Sharia finance, but they have very specific laws in their financial dealings that are different than ours. For example, they don't charge interest, and they can't pay interest, which is they also can't have insurance, which is why they had to be exempted from our health care laws.
Wow.
Because that's insurance, and fairly, it's against their religion, against their culture and their laws to take out insurance. So yes, they were exempted, fairly so, apparently.
Right.
But in Sharia law itself, the problem is that they keep asking for little innocuous things, like the foot baths, like having the children in school get break times for their prayers during the day, which other religious groups do not
receive.
get.
Absolutely not. They don't.
And people say, well, yeah, it's such a little thing. Why don't we let them do that? Well, the point is that each accommodation is, in effect, accepting Sharia.
Right. Yes.
And cumulatively, over a period of time, you've accepted so much Sharia law that after several years of doing this, instead of having them adapt to us and our constitutional law, we're suddenly using Sharia law, which is against our constitutional law.
I know there's, like in France, they have a huge problem with a whole separate, almost like state
And England.
in England, where it's no longer even policed by it's policed by Muslims. I mean, the regular police won't even go into certain areas.
Well, believe it or not, That's not just France and England. They have
Oh.
more than 80 Sharia courts in London
Wow.
that operate in parallel to the British legal system. However, it's totally different. We have Sharia law right here, Sharia courts, even though people refuse to believe it or admit it. But in Dearborn, Michigan, as well as other places, there are whole large enclaves there that are totally Muslim, and they did it by, in a sense, breaking the neighborhoods.
Right.
They swarmed in, started living there, and then they harassed and forced out non-Muslims till the entire area was all Muslim. Then they created their own kind of quasi-police force, and people like you or I would not be allowed to just go in there.
Wow.
Women who have gotten just around the edges of that area have been beaten and raped.
Wow.
Because they weren't dressed in Muslim garb or following the Muslim customs. Men were beaten up and forced to retreat from the area. They use Sharia courts there, Sharia law, and it has been documented by various documentary filmmakers and people who have gone in. But it's going on right in this country.
Wow. So this is a very interesting topic, but we're going to have to close. To everyone out there, please remember to go to our website, which is NJTeaPartyCoalition.org, and we meet every month, so please go to our website and find out more information. Thanks so much. So that was fast, right? That was so much faster.